I think we might be live already, man. Yo, yo,
Hit
yo.
it.
Welcome everyone to the live stream, the first of its kind. LeetCode Live coming to you here. What I'm doing right now, oh yeah, there it is, LeetCode Live. It's showing up right now. That
Nice.
is crazy. I can actually watch the live stream on my YouTube channel. That's pretty crazy. All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to this new thing that I'm trying out. I wanted to try and do a podcast because I've been doing all these streams for a while and doing a ton of leak code stuff and just trying to find like a new creative outlet. And I thought, well, everyone's doing podcasts nowadays, so why not try and get into, on my own? And it seems like, leak code is already a good enough niche to maybe do something like this with. And I think that we can get some good people on here and have some fun with it and just talk shop and have an overall good time. So I wanted to get my Discord moderator on here. His name is Sam Huang. He's an 18-year-old prodigy. He's been coding since he came out of the womb, and and it's been a lot of fun. So we're just gonna have some fun with it. This is going to be hopefully the first of many of these podcasts. If this is something that you like, subscribe to the channel. Let us know if there's anyone that you believe would be a good candidate to come on next. We're mainly looking for people that have had like LeetCode has had a significant impact in their life. Maybe not LeetCode, but just software in general. But since the channel is mostly LeetCode related, it'd be cool if you can talk about your LeetCode journey, maybe how it got you from point A to point B, how it's impacted your life, maybe how you've been able to even give back to the community, so on and so forth. I'm uploading this to the LeetCode live channel because I can't upload videos to my actual podcast channel yet, but I'm gonna record this one and I'll upload it to the other channel, and you guys will know all about that. So no worries. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. So what's up, Sam? How's the day been? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Brief background. We'll go into some more in deep, deeper questions in a bit. But overall, how's your day been?
Oh, hi guys. My name is Sam and I'm currently 18 years old. I just graduated from high school this June and I came from China. That is my native country, but I moved to Canada around 8.5 years ago. So now I'm just cruising my life doing leak code.
Having a good time, right?
Exactly. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun in Canada. It's different from China. It's just two different worlds.
What are some of the major differences that you spot between Canada and China? I guess what have been some of the biggest life changes that you've had to make when you moved to Canada?
So I remember the education system. That's the one thing I always compare. Like in China, we learn stuff months ahead or even years ahead compared to Canada. It's just a tougher education system. There's really no way around it because how else are they going to deal with overpopulation and all that?
Hmm.
So for example, I learned multiplication when I was in preschool,
Wow.
but in Canada, I learned it when I was grade 5. So it's just those differences in education that sets it apart. And there's also the culture. Like in China, it's the survival of the fittest. Again, due to a large amount of people, they have to pay for their family to live and eat, so they have to compete. In Canada, it's a lot more chill. People are having fun. They're not like busy studying like us Asians are, and they just go out, have fun, go for drinks. You know.
Nice. Do you ever feel like you miss it? Like you might want to go back or have you gone back since you moved to Canada to maybe even visit? I don't know if you have like a large family over there. Do you feel like you might ever want to go back and live there?
Not necessarily live there because I don't really like their culture overall. It's just too intense for me. But I do want to go back there I have few good memories there, so I just want to be able to see those places again
Sure.
and meet some of my relatives again.
Nice.
I
From a different
haven't gone
perspective,
back.
right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't gone back since I moved to Canada, and it's not like it's easier to go back now because of the pandemic and
Sure.
everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, perspective's a big thing, right? Like being able to revisit something that you grew up with now that you're older. Like there have been things in my life that I have gone back to like double or triple or even quadruple times at different stages, and it's always different to look at like the same thing, but you're just older and you can either maybe you appreciate it more, maybe you appreciate it less. It's very interesting, like especially with video games. That's like one thing that I've noticed a lot. Like when I was younger, there are games that I played that I didn't really enjoy, or I would just play too quickly. And now I can play the same game and take way longer. I'm just more patient. I'm just like more mature, and I can like really appreciate all these like nuances more. So yeah, I can only imagine what going back to China would be, and like seeing old relatives or friends or even old locations you've been to must be like very cool. Something
Hmm.
you mentioned earlier was about multiplication. I think I also learned multiplication definitely at some time between like third and fifth grade. But I remember I used to practice my multiplication tables with my mom, and I got
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, and I got like pretty good at it. And there was like this one girl that I would always go against because we would do these like games where we'd be like facing the whiteboard, and then the teacher would say turn around, and we'd see the multiple like the expression, and whoever shouted out the answer first would be like the winner of that round. And there was always this girl that I went against. Her name was Natasha, and her and I were like the top. Like she was so fast, and I was like also fast, and it was a lot of fun. And that was in elementary school. And the funny thing about that is, years later, when I was in university, I was just like in a class one day, and I see this person, and I'm like, "Are you Natasha by any chance?" It turns out it was the same girl, and like she went to university. I went to University of Miami, and she was there, and that was like very cool. We had like a couple hours like catch up, and it was just fun to like reminisce on that. So that's very cool. Yeah, so that's awesome, Sam. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome if you get a chance to go back, and I'd definitely love to like hear about your journey if and when you do go back. Maybe we'd have you on again, and you can talk about that experience. So, I prepared we prepared a couple of questions since this is like the first podcast. We're sort of just like being very relaxed about this, and there's some questions that Sam helped me comb through and picked out some of the more relevant ones. So we're just going to go through some questions here and talk about some of these things, and hopefully just like stretch them out and have a longer discussion. So we'll just go down the list here. So, what has been your favorite job that you have held?
That that's a kind of a tough one since I did not have that many jobs. But I think my favorite job right now is my current one. So right now I work as a merchandiser for a pharmacy store. Basically, I do like stocking the shelves and make sure things are displayed neatly and just enhance the overall customer experience. The best part was definitely my coworkers. They're super
Nice.
awesome.
That's
They
the
like to
plus.
joke a lot, laugh a lot. We just hang out during work. We still have a lot of work to do, but definitely having good coworkers makes life a lot easier.
It does. And are
Exactly.
these people like your same age
So
or varying ages?
there there's a wide range. I know one girl, she's in high school right now and we talk a lot, and there is another person I remember. She worked there for 57 years.
Wow.
So
That must be
that
that's a
like
good thing, right?
that range,
Yeah.
it's like
That's
but like she's awesome. Everyone's awesome there.
that's good. Yeah, it totally makes a big difference. I've worked at places too where the coworkers are terrible, and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't deal with these people. I mean, but I think there's something to say also about being in an environment like that, because if you come out of it, like if you put yourself through it, even if you're working with people that you don't like, there's something to be said about that too, right? Like resiliency and like mental fortitude to be able to like handle people like that, even in those like tough situations. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. It's not bad that that person's been there for 57 years either. I mean, if anything, it shows that people like the place enough to stick around for that long.
Exactly.
So that's a good thing, right? I mean, it's a good indicator to people that are just starting out there that, okay, maybe this can be like an okay place for me to work. That's awesome, man. Let me see. We have the next one here. I might flip some of these around. I actually want to maybe, let me see. So let me remove this one from this list. And also so we can get to some of the stuff about like code. Why don't we actually transition over to you being a moderator on Discord? So yeah, Sam is currently the second moderator on my Discord. It's only two people because I'd say we're still relatively small. But when Sam joined, I think I was able to pull him in and identify him as a strong technical person probably within like, I don't know, 2 weeks or maybe even a shorter amount of time. So how do you feel that, or do you even feel that being a Discord moderator, especially in like a LeetCode focused Discord, has like changed the way you look at problems? Do you feel like you're better off for being a moderator? Do you feel like it's maybe taking too much time apart from being able to just like do LeetCode and forget about everything else? Yeah, I'd love to hear, because I don't think we've actually ever had too many conversations about you being a moderator, so it'd be cool.
So the way I look at this is I'm still exactly the same person. I still do LeetCode. I still do my things. I think being a moderator is nice, can help people a lot, and it kind of gives you the title that you kind of have this, what do you call it, experience or knowledge and all that. But yeah, I think being a moderator, I still feel the same. I think
That's
that's how
good.
I would describe it.
Nice.
Like,
Yeah, I think that's like a totally valid reason too, right? Or not, maybe not a reason, but a way of putting it. Like for sure, you still feel the same. Like nothing really has changed too much. I know that you've been like steadily doing LeetCode. I think I would almost assume that you do at least a question a day. Is that a safe assumption? At least one question a
I
day?
don't think I can do one hard question every day.
Not a hard one, no, but maybe an easy one at least.
I mean, not only focus on hard problems because they give me something to think about. But yeah, I don't have the strength to do one hard every day. That's like, if someone can do that, I don't know how they can do it.
Yeah, we need to, that's the next person we need to get on, right? Like someone that just has only done hard questions, and how did they get to that point? But I know that you've been doing a lot of hard questions, and the majority of your question count, you just passed, it was 300 questions on LeetCode, right? The majority of the questions I think are hard, if not more than half are hard questions, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you talk about like, you know, how how long did it take for you to get to being able to do hard questions, and what was sort of like your journey to finally get there? What was the day, or was there a day that you woke up and you're like, I kind of like got it now and I could really do and focus on hard questions?
Okay, so I just want to clarify. Like, I
Nice.
worked my butt off to get to where I am. It was not an easy thing. I
Nice.
don't think I have any gift or talents to tackle those hard questions. Like, I had to learn so much stuff, and it was a slow and painful process, but I think eventually it pays off.
Absolutely.
So like I'll talk a little bit about my journey. I'll start from, I think, day zero. So I don't know why I did LeetCode, but I got to the website and I see problems, and then I try to do some of them. I just couldn't do it, so I quit for like a year maybe.
Yeah,
Then
as is with many of us.
then I came back. I think I did some more questions, and then I quit again for a few months.
Nice.
I was able to do some questions if it's like not really strictly algorithms. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Just simple questions.
Sure, like add two numbers.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Add two numbers. The first question on LeetCode. And that's good. I'm actually really happy that you said that, because so many, one of the biggest things you see if you like read through like the LeetCode subreddit, or you just know people that are trying to get into LeetCode, is they feel like it's like with anything else in life that is worth doing, that is hard, people always want to compare themselves to someone that's already at the end. So someone, imagine I was like a noob. I'm not where you are, but I don't consider myself a noob. But it would be unfair for me to compare myself to like you, right? Because you went through a lot more to get to where you are. I can't just say, well, I can't do hard questions, so I'm not fit for this, right? I like that you put it that way, because for everyone that's listening, they're gonna realize like, okay, even for someone like Sam or anyone else that's now able to like do hard questions, it takes a long time, right? You even said yourself, like you quit twice before maybe the third time finally stuck. So I think that's a very important thing to like take away, and hopefully for everyone listening that can benefit from that, and realize that it really is more about the journey and not the destination. As cheesy as that
Exactly.
sounds, but it's true. Like that saying couldn't be more appropriate for here. So how many did you, when you were starting out, were any of these, there's now a ton of popular lists out there like Grind 75 and LeetCode 75. I'm even creating my own list. Like were any of these lists available when you were starting your journey? Maybe Blind 75, and how did you approach it? Did you do any of those, or did you just do whatever you felt like doing?
So I did not do any LeetCode research outside of LeetCode. I just saw what was on the website. I tried to do some questions. And also, I do not have any strategies. So I picked few bad questions I didn't know were bad.
Yeah,
And like I didn't understand why they were bad until I was good enough.
sure.
But like, at that time, I got very unlucky with the question I picked. They all require something I didn't know, and it was just a mental drain. It's like trying to figure out something when you don't even know the essentials.
Right.
It that that doesn't really end well for LeetCode. And yeah, I did not look at any of the lists. I don't even know if they existed back then. Like I don't know if Blind 75 existed or like
It could have, yeah. I don't know. That's one of the older ones. So depending on when you actually started, it could have existed. I'm writing. By the way, if you see me looking this way, it's because I'm writing like follow up questions as you're talking. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine.
It's not, yeah. Because you mentioned something like, how can you even know how to do a question if you don't know the essentials? So, like, do you think it's possible, if no one has ever done anything, like if no one's actually done LeetCode and knows the patterns, do you feel like you can actually start solving questions unless you read a couple of discussion posts first, maybe you look at a couple of solutions? Like, do you need some base understanding before you even try and tackle it, or do you feel like just by reading a ton of data structure and algorithm articles you can get by?
So I think if you're like 200 IQ guy, then you can definitely start just right away if you have 200
Right.
IQ. But the thing is, if you don't know patterns, like if you don't know two pointers and sliding window, heaps and all that, it doesn't even occur to you to think that way. And that's important because a lot of questions they focus on some specific areas, and if you don't know what they are, then either you can take your time to figure it out or you can learn the things that it requires.
Right.
So that was actually one of my mistakes at the beginning. I just didn't look at what's required for the questions, so I gave up. And that doesn't help because I still don't know what I need to do to tackle that question later on.
Right.
So I guess I'll say one quick advice for anyone starting LeetCode. Know your data structures, please. Like, please, please. I had to read discussion posts for maybe 100 questions when I just started, and those are not hard questions because I didn't even bother doing hards at that time.
Oh,
But yeah,
of course. I
know
mean,
your
yeah.
essentials, know your arrays, your just general things you use in programming, and you can look up what topics are common in data structure and algorithms and learn some of them. Just don't make the same mistake that I did, and you won't have to go through that much pain.
probably everyone's gonna have to go through some pain, some of their own pain, and that's natural. Anytime you're learning something that's difficult, especially with coding. And if anything, I'd say that you want some level of pain because that shows that you're doing something that's challenging enough that you can overcome. You don't want something that's impossible that you're going to give up entirely,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
needs to be challenging enough to actually like flex your brain. So since you were talking about advice, like if I asked, top 3 biggest pieces of advice, if you can start over again from ground zero, or actually, yeah, if you can start over again with what you know today, how would you approach LeetCode? And I guess the same for new beginners, for new people, I guess, because new beginners is sort of redundant. How would you advise for someone to get into LeetCode starting today?
Okay, one, learn the basic data structures and algorithms. I'll repeat that again.
Nice,
So
that's important.
that's one. I think second one is just giving your brain time to process the question, because even if you know, let's say heap, right? But you don't see how this question uses heap, and then maybe you check the related topics and it says heap, and you're like, well, how the heck do I use that? You just really think about a question. Don't look at the answer right away,
Right.
because it's different when you're just reading the answer versus when you actually think about it. And maybe that's called intuition or something. But yeah, it's two completely different results in terms of understanding and just being comfortable with heaps, for example. The third advice, I'm not really sure if I have a third advice. Well, I guess it's knowing what you should learn, because again, you don't want to stumble on a question forever.
Right.
Like if it requires certain classic algorithms, then you can learn that, or maybe try to derive it yourself first. And then if you had to look up what the algorithm is, try to understand how it works, and why it's correct, and all that. And the reason that's important, like it might seem useless, but for a lot of LeetCode problems, you will have to tweak a lot of classic algorithms. Um, I've been doing a bunch of questions that require a shortest path algorithm. I think
Nice.
it's called Dijkstra, or
Dijkstra, yeah.
however it's pronounced it. But basically, it's so powerful that I can cheese question with it. Like I can use Dijkstra instead of DP, and it, it's just great when you can manipulate algorithms in any way you want. So I
Yeah,
think
that's like a
those,
different level, right? Like really have mastery so much that you can use even a different data structure than what the question might require, like at a surface level. Like figuring out how to use Dijkstra for something that maybe more conventionally would benefit from DP.
yeah,
That's pretty cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you'll know that it's not the intended way, because like I cheese the question so bad I don't want to think about it. But like I remember one question, what you're supposed to do is have a DP. But DP is not enough by itself, so you need something called bit mask.
Right.
And bit mask, for anyone that doesn't know, it it is literally a number, but the representation of it is bunch of ones and zeros. And the ones and zeros can be something you represent. So that's how you keep track of the state, is with bit mask. So instead of doing that, I decided to use Dijkstra because why not?
That's
And
awesome.
Dijkstra with bitmask doesn't work well. My solution was really messy, and it was a pain to code, and I just I can't handle it. I don't want to think about that solution. But yeah, basically what I'm saying is, if you know your topics well enough, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, just complete
Like,
mastery.
yeah, as long as it gets the job done, then in my opinion it is okay. but maybe learn the proper solution. Maybe.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Why not learn the most optimal way of doing it? Yeah. I know a big thing was with you is understanding because I know a lot of people on Discord, and I think even I have asked you before, like, oh, how do you keep track of questions you've done, or do you revisit old questions? Do you memorize solutions? And
Right.
and and something you'd always say is no, because you just take the time to understand it. And once it becomes part of like your, I guess your, it's common sense. You don't have to memorize it anymore. It just becomes part of you, I guess. It's not really something you're really even thinking about anymore. So I thought that was very interesting. And I think that's definitely something, like one of my big things is take your time. I know that like everyone's in a rush to grind and get their next job, tomorrow. But like I always see a grind or cramming as poor time management because like it doesn't matter. You can always give yourself a longer timeline. Like unless, I mean, I can't think of any situation. I mean, I'm sure there are situations where you need a job like immediately, but for the most part, I feel like people are probably more like impatient than not, so they want the job tomorrow. But if you give yourself a longer timeline, you can take the time to understand the questions and understand the answers, and then you don't have to worry so much about like, oh, I pray that I get this question in my interview so I can just, like, I have interviewed people that you can tell memorize the question. I mean, they just write the answers so fast, it's incredible, and they don't even talk. Like it's like, man, this person is so happy right now because they're like, oh, I'm going to show this person my engineering prowess and I'm going to blow their mind. And I always catch it. I don't say anything, but I usually don't pass them because to me it doesn't really show that that person's any better. I've actually had better experiences with people who weren't able to solve questions, but I knew that if they had maybe like 5 minutes, they probably would get it because the way they were talking about it with me. Like some people will come and they'll start talking a lot about a question and they'll go in depth. And the reason that they just don't solve the question because, like, not because they didn't know, I think they just need a little more time. That to me is better than just like memorizing something and just typing it up really quickly. So that's very important. Yeah. If anyone's listening, definitely like understand the question, take your time with it, and don't worry so much about memorizing things. I want to follow that up with transferable skills. So I know you do a lot of your own coding on the side. And do you feel like LeetCode has any like one-to-one, like, do you feel like I guess your hobby or even professional coding has gotten better because of you doing LeetCode, or do you feel like they're just two separate, things altogether?
So I think, okay, I'll just say this straight up. 90% of what I learned in LeetCode is useless. Complete useless. Like I've never had a project that I had to use dynamic programming on. But what I think is important takeaway is one, understanding big O, because that's how you define the speed of algorithms as your input grows. And when you have complicated operations you're trying to optimize, it's important to understand what your time complexity is because you will want to develop a scalable solution like companies want. That's at least what I think. I mean, I haven't been to any software engineer jobs, but I think they would want a scalable solution.
Yes.
And a very good thing to think about is the big goal. And second one is just the overall optimization mindset because LeetCode forces you, like if you're tackling medium and hard, they force you to think about your solution optimally. And I think that is a good thing because you really have to consider if you can do anything better. That's with a lot of code. You can always write better code. You can always run faster, like whether it's in micro benchmarks and all that. But yeah, understanding big O and just write optimal code. I think those are the two things.
Yeah, and I actually agree with what you said. So the first thing you mentioned about Big O, There was actually a good friend of mine that left the company I currently work at. He left about, I'll say like 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And we had this microservice that was running and it was doing some complex operations. And I remember like one of the last things he did was he changed the system in a way that instead of, it was like, I forgot exactly what it did, but I know that he introduced a hash table into the mix to increase the performance, like to be able to do something with the hash table instead of having to like linearly scan an array. And he was able to like dramatically improve the performance. And he told me, he's like, yeah, that's like something I learned from LeetCode. Like he took a pattern on LeetCode and applied it to something in real life, and we were able to actually see the improvement on that through benchmarking and like even cost. So there's a lot of like really good effects of learning LeetCode and trying to apply them in your real job. And like you said, the optimization mindset. I think that's like a very, you don't want to get too involved in too much optimization. What is it like? Premature optimization is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
I think was it Donald Knuth that said that? I
I don't
think
know who said that, but it's a good quote.
someone said it. It's a cool quote. But yeah, definitely good points that you mentioned there. So have you ever done contests? I don't know why. I don't know if we've ever talked about contests. Do you normally do the LeetCode contests?
So I'm actually pretty vocal about my opinion on contest. I don't do contest, especially when you think about something like code forces, where it is actually the competitive programming. And the reason I don't do contests is because I I wanna like have fun with my life and not having
Yeah.
to sit in my chair for a few hours studying math.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with contest and competitive programming. You need to know math. Like whether you like it or not, you have to know the basics, like number theory and all that. And I don't want that. I got time to do other stuff. I don't want to put it on contest. But from what I've heard, contest is a pretty good thing to do if you want to get better solving problems quickly. And I don't know if it's true or not. You can confirm on this. Do you require solutions to be coded out fast and bug free? Typical company standard.
For an interview, it depends. Like for me, the most important thing is communication. Now, because I've literally interviewed people. One thing that I don't know if all the companies do this, but I remember like the second week they already wanted me to interview someone for like a staff level position, and I was a junior engineer, and I'm like, how am I gonna? But I've interviewed people that are like 20 years into their careers, and they have issues like writing classes, like, and you can tell that like something's wrong. Like you might say that you've been in a position, and these people, like I've interviewed people at like that come from Microsoft. A lot of people go from Microsoft to Citrix. That's where I work currently. And it's like, are you coding every day, or like what is it that you're really doing in your job? So for me, I don't know, the most important thing is communication. And you can tell right away how confident someone is. I was going to say based on the way they speak, but then you also have other cases where people talk a lot and they don't write any code, and they sound really confident when they talk. So yeah, I'd rather have someone not finish the question, but at least write good code up until that point. Like a question that's completely done, but it's not well formed and didn't have a lot of thought into it, I think is worse than a question that's like 60 or 70% done, or even halfway complete, but the person like really talked to you about it. They were like considering edge cases before you brought them up. They were debugging their code as they went along, because sometimes people don't finish questions because they try to do all these other nice things as they're trying to do all of them in parallel. Because usually you want to like start the question, ask clarifying questions, you do the questions, and then you debug code. But sometimes people, they'll be like clarifying questions, writing code, and debugging at the same time. So they're moving a little bit slowly, but I also like that you can tell they're really thinking about all these different things. And I'm like, okay, that person Because when you're an engineer, like a real engineer, right? You have time to get things done. You don't need to get something done in half an hour. Like, so I'm not really too concerned about speed, right? It's not like your manager will ask you, hey, Sam, can you get this done? There's like this bug. I need it done in 20 minutes. And you need to also tell me the time and space complexity when you're done. Like, no, like, no, like that's never going to happen. So just,
Oh,
yeah,
actually, now that you mention it about speed, because I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, for interviews you have to solve two questions in 60 minutes. You have to talk about the right bug-free code and all that." And then I think, how's that even possible?
yeah.
Like you first do medium question, maybe like in 20 minutes, and then you do hard question after in 40. Like, how?
It's like, oh, do we have a chat going on here? Oh yeah, someone wrote on chat. I think it's MMD. It's one of my the people that I normally see on stream. So what's up, MMD? Hey, but no, I get what you mean though, and the scary thing is this: like when I started doing, when I was like interviewing, I graduated university in 2017, and I remember I did an interview with Twitter, and it was like the phone screen, and the phone screen was like it was like twosome. That was the only question, twosome. Now you'd be lucky if you get that as a question on it. Because the thing is, like, it has gotten, I think, exponentially more competitive than 2017. Because, like, it's how you just said, you want time to do other things in your life. But there are people that will do LeetCode since the sunrise to sunset. And that's the worst part because they companies know this, and there's some people that like you and I want time to do other things, and there's some people that are going to rise up to the occasion and be like, well, if the company wants me to do it, I'm going to work twice as hard than the next person and like kill myself to get this position. And companies know that competition is out there. So, and engineers, man, I hate to say it, but like they're expendable. Engineers at massive companies are expendable. Like everyone that gets into these companies is more often than not a decent engineer. Like if you persevered and worked yourself to be able to like do LeetCode and get in, like you're probably better than the average coder, at least when it comes to like LeetCode. But software engineering is a whole other, like I don't think it's like they're just two different beasts. So it's harder now for people to get into companies, man. I think even on the Discord, people have said like they're giving hard questions on phone screens. And that's
Wait,
like that's scary because a phone screen shouldn't be like, I don't think it should be a hard question. A phone screen's like, I want to make sure that you're like, you just know how to code. Like I can tell that if I see you writing code, you're like moderately comfortable with it. That's what I think like a phone screen should do. But like having a hard question, I don't know. It's scary, man. It's only gonna get worse. They're gonna probably have a new category soon after hard. I think like I'll go expert has very hard.
well,
So
actually, I checked out some of the very hard questions I googled around, and it's also just LeetCode hard. So
yeah, it's different. They rate the questions differently.
yeah. Oh, you said phone screen. So I just want to know, how does that work? Do you just talk on the phone, or what do you do?
Yeah, they say phone screen. I think maybe that was just like an older thing. Nowadays, it's typically like a call like we're doing right now. And they just talk to you for an hour and ask you questions. Normally, they'll give you like an easier medium leak code question, or maybe even like a system design style question. And then they'll just kind of talk to you like high level about your past projects that you've worked on, maybe some behavioral questions. Everything's super high level and like fluffy, just it's like a very early screening to make sure that you're not just like a liar or something and you actually know how to do something.
Yeah,
So super
that's.
basic, yeah.
Oh, I just remember something I want to talk about. So
Yeah, for sure.
with LeetCode, it's true. Like maybe 95% of cases you won't use this stuff. you learn, but the other 5% is where you get to work on crucial technology. Like for example, I think in TypeScript, they have this compiler that compiles to JavaScript.
Yeah, the TypeScript
And
compiler.
and the compilers they use graphs, for example. And graphs help represent the language, overall functionality, how it works. And maybe in something like games, LeetCode actually has problems on game theory. It's
Nice.
called game theory. You determine whether a player can win or lose, and that's probably how you will write an AI for the game. So basically, what I'm saying is, unless you work in those really specialized products that you have to know things like graphs and all that,
Right.
you might not ever use them. Like I don't know if this is true. I've never seen LeetCode stuff on something like a React application and
No, no, never.
front end
Never.
page. But
No,
yeah,
I've never seen that either because there's so many libraries for all this stuff already. Like if I need a way to like store information, I'm not going to create my own data structure to do it. I'm going to use whatever like method the library provides for me or the language provides for me to be able to get it done. I don't
yeah,
have to like come up with something new every single time. Yeah, I mean, probably most of the value of LeetCode comes from, I'd say, like, there's probably like in reality, I would say there's almost like 600 easy questions right now. So I'd say there's probably like 100 very good easy questions that you can do. And then I think there's like 1,500 mediums. Most of your value probably comes from doing like those 100 easy questions and like maybe 100 or so of medium questions. And then probably when you get to hard, I mean, you tell me since you've done mostly hards. I know that hard has given you a lot of value, but you probably see the biggest jump in your skills when you go from easy to understanding medium questions very well. I think that's like the biggest breakthrough. And I almost think that it's maybe less when you go from medium to hard. Do you agree or disagree? I'm curious to hear what you think.
the one thing I will say about medium problems is that they're kind of like a one trick pony, I'll call it, because they essentially test you on this trick or data structure. Like it's really obvious once you know it, but when you don't know it, they can feel the same as hard. So that's the one thing I'll say. So, but hard problems, they go in a lot more depth. It's no longer a one trick pony.
Right.
There's tons of things you have to consider. Like every single operation you do, you have to consider its time complexity.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so, and then there are some questions that rely on math tricks. Like, I think math and dynamic programming are pretty common, but I'm saying that you probably want to get comfortable with using at least like three data structured algorithms if you want to comfortably do hards. It's just that much you have to handle. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? Like in easy, it's normally like one data structure, and then when you get to mediums, you start using like two. Some easy questions you can get to like two data structure territory, especially once you pass. Like now, I've passed 250 easies, and I'm like I can definitely see the increase in difficulty, obviously from question zero, and then yeah, you get to medium. Now you start having to deal with like multiple data structures. I think that's one of the hallmarks of a medium question that now you deal with multiple data structures and figuring out how to make them play nicely. And your constraints also uh, increase, I guess. You're more constrained. So you have to like be a little bit more clever. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward
actually,
to getting into mediums more.
like I remember question I did yesterday.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I used, let's see, let me count. So I used, okay, for binary search, binary search, ordered set, union find,
Hmm.
sweep line, heaps, and
Wait, all in the same question?
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god. That's scary.
I
That's a
know.
lot. Yeah, that's a
I mean,
lot.
that's nowhere the intended solution. The intended solution is just pure logic based. But for me, like I want to execute this idea, and that's another thing about hard I'll talk about. So with hard, you want to think in terms of ideas, not really in terms of what data structures you know, because these data structures they help you to achieve what you want. And the reason you learn them is because they have different time complexities for different operations they support. So I had this big brain idea, big brain,
Big brain.
and it took those, I think, six data structures to achieve. I even lost count. But
That's a
yeah,
lot of data structures. Yeah, I've never seen a question use that many. Yeah, that's hard to like keep all in your head, right? You have to like organize your code well so you don't get lost.
but this goes back to understanding what your data structure allows you to do,
Right.
and then those data structures just become steps to your overall
Yes.
algorithm for the problem. So, but I think it's a very tough transition to be able to think like that because again, first you have to know the things required, and second you have to have that intuition. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because people have asked me. It's kind of similar to like when people want to choose a language to get something done. I think at some point, if you're working on very critical applications or applications that you're dealing with like a crazy amount of scale, I think language decision becomes very important. But things that I normally try and tell people is as you begin to get more senior in your career, like you said, how instead of thinking so much about like the code per se, you want to think more ideas. Like the language, you shouldn't be confined by the language. Like you really should just be able to think in like abstractions. Like, okay, to solve this problem, I need to be able to store some data. I need to be able to iterate over something. I need to be able to, I don't know, delete something, so on and so forth, right? These are just like building blocks that the syntax shouldn't get in the way of like you being able to do that. Like you should be able to like work with any language and you just look up like, okay, how do I do XYZ? And then you can just do it. So I think it's, I think what you said is probably true that when you get to the hard level questions, you're not thinking like someone that's doing easies is probably, I don't know, maybe like, oh, let me try to do the question with a linked list. Okay, now let me try binary search. Now let me try. They're just like linearly iterating over all these data structures in their head and applying them. But probably by the time you get to hard, it's different. And that actually leads nicely to the next question. Like, how is it that you actually approach a question? Like a question that you've never seen. Do you have a thought process that you go over, like a step-by-step thing, or you just start randomly, picking things? How do you approach something?
So I'll actually use the question that I tried tackling
Nice.
today. It is called the course schedule 3, and I've actually seeked
Nice.
help for the question on the Discord because I just have no idea. I tried all my ideas out, but basically, I'll briefly explain the question
Sure.
so y'all can understand. So you have some number of courses, and they are represented by the duration and the last day you can take that course. Like the course has to be finished before or on that day. So you're trying to figure out what is the maximum amount of courses you can take. And so I didn't know that this was a famous standard problem.
It is. Yeah, I heard course schedule, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
So basically, the way I think about a question is start thinking about the properties of a question. Like, and that might sound really vague, so I'll use my thought process for an example. So when I look at courses, I maybe like I try to some strategy where I take the smallest courses as soon as possible. It, because the way you think about that is you have a bunch of little small courses, and all you really care about is the number of courses. But turns out that doesn't work. But I'm thinking about a property of a problem, and that property is the duration of each course. So then I try to think more about the question. Like I obviously have to take into account of the last day I can finish this course. So maybe I can do this dynamic programming thing where, let's say, like if a course takes 5 days to complete and I have to finish it at day 6, I want to figure out how many courses I can take from day 1. The maximum answer I can have to day 1. So I just add that course to the end. And of course that doesn't work. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to really dissect the question down. I look at the courses, I look at all the other aspect of the problem, and I still couldn't solve it. So I asked for help. Not the complete solution. I just want a few hints, maybe on some things I missed. And then, they told me, okay, this is a standard problem. And then there's some hints on LeetCode question as well. So that's one example of how I think about a question that I don't know how to tackle. But the process will look different from question to question.
Do you have
Because
like
again,
some commonalities among them, or is there like
um,
always something you do, or do you think it's like always different for every single one?
so I kind of have an instinct that tells me whether I've seen question that's kind of similar, like not on the surface, but just the overall idea or the execution.
Sure.
But different questions are different questions. You just have to really think about each question, and yeah, it's time draining, and I'm actually kind of tired. When I was thinking about the question this morning, but yeah, just take your time, guys. This is called problem solving, and problem solving doesn't magically occur
Yeah, it
until you
takes
allow it.
time.
Yeah, it takes time. So yeah, I'm actually not sure how I would describe it more. Sorry if
Yeah,
that
I mean,
that's a
everyone.
little bit lame, but
No, 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 it's fine. Everyone has their own way to approach questions, and that's the way that you described it, and that's totally cool, man. There's no problem. Yeah, I think I'm still in that stage where maybe I definitely have a little more intuition now. I like if I see a problem, I can maybe try and apply a pattern that I've seen before, and that will come quickly. Or I'm at the stage where I'm like thinking of different data structures and trying to figure out how I can organize the data given a given data structure. So yeah, I think once I start doing more medium questions, that will probably change. And I'm definitely looking very much forward to that. I think that'll be very cool. So awesome. And yeah, I think that was like a lot of good like LeetCode conversation. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions like LeetCode specific that maybe we can like lead into maybe one of these other questions with. Because I think here, let's see, which one of these questions can maybe be very beneficial for users, people watching this stream here.
I wanted to say
Oh
twosome,
yeah,
but like
twosome's amazing. Like I think if you're gonna pick one question to do, I think twosome and like really understand twosome, not just like look at the answer. You know.
it's like you might try to do this brute force, but the optimal solution is just like it opens a whole new world.
Oh yeah, no,
It's like how's
it's
this?
how is that even possible? Like, how I never even thought about that. Actually, the when I did that Twitter interview for Twosome, like I did the brute force method, and at the time, not knowing anything, I thought that was great. And I think, and the interesting thing is like the brute force method probably comes sort of naturally to most people.
Hmm.
Like it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna look at every single pair and like go from there, right? But yeah, when you get to the optimal solution, you're like, wait, this is like, okay, so I can probably do other questions like this. And here's a way that I can't speak for me because like a lot of good medium questions have a good like to dislike ratio, but a surefire way that you can tell that a question is going to use a very clever like way of solving it is if you see an easy question that has like a crazy amount of likes, like if it has like over like 1,500 likes and a couple of like 100 dislikes, it means that there is for sure a very clever way of solving it. And that's why people like it so much. Because even on my recent streams, there have been questions that I've done, easy questions that I'll like figure it out quickly. And I'm like, this question wouldn't be ranked this highly if it was this easy. Like there's something I'm missing. And then I look at the discussions and I'm just like, that's insane. That's why I think there's so many easy questions that go under the rug and people just don't even consider them. But if you look at the discussions and understand the optimal way of doing it, it's like the same way with twosome. And then yeah, twosome's crazy. And even like threesome leads, like twosome leads very nicely into threesome. And I've never tried foursome, but I'm guessing it's probably somewhat similar to
Hmm.
doing like threesome and stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
classic LeetCode questions.
I'll talk about some filters I use to filter bad problems. I've definitely
Oh
seen
yeah,
lots of crap problems,
oh
especially
for
the
sure.
hard questions, where it's like, oh, I don't want to do this question.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like, but one thing I'll say is check the like dislike ratio. If it has more
yeah,
dislikes
yeah,
than likes, then it's not entirely bad, but it's just tedious.
yes.
I remember there's a question it's called text justification.
Oh my god, I hate
You
that.
basically you have to center the you have to like center the text in the middle. Wait, no, not center it. You have to put even amount of spaces.
Spaces in
But
between, yeah,
it's just such a tedious work.
yeah,
And then there's another one where you know it's just going to be annoying. You have
right.
to convert the number into its English word.
Yes, I know that one too. I haven't done that one. I have done text justification. Funny thing, I actually got asked that question during an interview for Coursera. Coursera. I don't know if you're familiar with that their platform, like a learning platform. But yeah, the other one from English to is it English or
It's a
numbers to
number
English?
to English.
Yeah, how do you do that, man? I haven't actually thought about it, but that must be kind of a doozy. Maybe.
It is. It's not that bad. It's just such a pain. Like
Is it
the
like a
way
lot
I
of if and else
evaluate question
conditions?
is like what what value does this question give?
Yeah, for sure. That's
I
a
don't
big thing
see
too.
any value in text justification. Like
Yeah.
what does that tell you about the interviewer when they can solve text justification? Maybe
Nothing.
maybe like
Yeah, that they memorized the question probably. Like that question is too specific and too unique to not be like memorized. You get what I'm saying? Like if someone just like knows how to solve that, I don't know. I'm convinced that like so many people have seen the answer to that question nowadays that asking that question is not worth it. Like I think the best questions to ask are probably like system design questions or do something not like system design because I've had really good phone interview questions that are like, do you know what like observable pattern is? Do you know anything like that?
nope.
Pub
I
sub
am
pattern.
complete nub on system design. No, literally zero knowledge. So
I'll try to like very high level. So pub sub, publish, subscribe literally means that you can have some source emit some data That's like your publisher, and you can have
Oh,
multiple consumers consume
I
that
I know
data,
that. I know that pattern.
subscribe to that data. Yeah. And I think like actually it was my phone interview for Reddit, which I did in January. Yeah, January of this year. My phone interview was like to just build a simple like class in JavaScript that just did a pub sub, like a pub sub class. So I can go and I can publish new data and I can have consumers that are currently subscribed to that data get that data and do something with it. So I think that was a great question because, you know, you do all this LeetCode, you go into that phone interview ready to do some LeetCode, and then they give you a question that's not LeetCode. And I mean, talk about like you're so nervous at that point because you're like, I've spent the last 3 months grinding, and now they're gonna ask you something that's not even like related. Yeah,
oh,
those are some of the best questions. Text justification is terrible.
I actually know that. I already forgot the pattern name now, but I remember Node.js has it. It's like they have this like events module.
Yeah, yeah, with event emitters and all that.
Yeah, that's how I learned it. So I just remember that when you mentioned
Yeah,
it.
it's a good class. I used that recently in something I did for work. I was gonna say something about the value thing. So there are questions that I do on my streams that sometimes I skip because of that same reason. I can tell they're just like if it's a math question that wants me to figure out like the area of a triangle, I'm like this is not benefiting anyone, and I skip it. And I tell people like we'll do this later at some point. Like we definitely will because that's just like part of the challenge to do all the questions. But I feel like I'm still early in the challenge, early enough in the challenge that right now I'm focused more on quantity of questions and not so much like uh, quality, unless it's like really bad quality, and I'll skip it. So yeah, the value of a question that's also like that's also very important too. So I like that you brought that up. Let me see. So you do a lot of stuff in C++, don't you? Weren't you like
Yep.
trying to create your own compiler or something or a templating language or something like that? I don't know why. I think maybe you tried to do something like that. I forget.
Yeah, I tried. The thing is, it actually uses one of the LeetCode things. It's called recursion,
Yeah, yeah,
and
nice. Ooh,
any
recursion.
parsers will use it. But it's just a way. Basically, it was too hard, so I took a break from it. Like even parsing the language itself is pretty hard. It it's probably underestimated. That's why when you create a language, you want to consider its syntax because I know people who work on the C++ compiler,
Nice.
they hate its syntax of guts. It's hard it's hard to parse and the language is hard to, create. So yeah, that's like
Yeah, C++, man. I miss C++ a little bit, not always. I mean, I enjoy JavaScript, but in school we did C++ like exclusively. And I haven't ran a C++ program in at least 4 years, you know? So I
yeah.
mean, it's been a very long time. But that's is that the language that you use for LeetCode
Yep.
exclusively? Yeah, so some people hear that and they're gonna think you're crazy. I mean, just yesterday, people were telling me, why do you use JavaScript? Like you have to use Python, that's like the language. And I'm like, no, okay, well, I don't use Python because one, I enjoy JavaScript, and two, I guess if I was looking for the quickest way to get good at LeetCode and I was like in a hurry to get an amazing job like tomorrow, yeah, perhaps maybe I would learn Python. Maybe that would make my grind easier, I guess. But I'm not doing that right now. I'm just doing this for fun, which I think it's the same reason you're doing it, mostly for fun, right?
hmm
Yeah, because yeah, I mean, people are like, oh, you can't do it with C++, man. The Python is the language right now for LeetCode.
Well, I'll bring up the point of knowing your tools. So obviously, LeetCode, you can work with any language. But if you want to get to something like competitive programming, you want a lot of stuff that's built in without having to write it yourself. So
Right.
that's why people love C++ for, just data structures and algorithms. So yeah, just know your tools, guys. Learn them when necessary.
Exactly. That was this person's argument, like, oh, JavaScript doesn't have heaps, so you can't do anything. And I'm like, well, I could use the library that LeetCode provides, and that's like decent enough for me. And like, if anything, it's gonna force you to have to learn how to make your own heap anyway. So like,
Hmm.
that's like good practice in and of itself. Yeah, it's crazy, man. LeetCode is yeah, we went through the web archive, right? For LeetCode. Didn't we do
Yeah.
that? Yeah, Sam and I did like the web archive for LeetCode, and we were like looking at LeetCode in like 2013 or something. And like it's cool to see that some of the same, like some of the first questions are still like two sum was one of the first questions. And
Hmm.
I think there was like amount of ways to get to climb stairs or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's like classic questions, and you're like, oh man, like I wonder, man, I wonder what LeetCode will be like in like 5 years.
I don't want to imagine it. It scares me.
It does, right? It scares me too because it's gonna get like hyper competitive. It's gonna be disgustingly competitive.
But like,
Like,
oh, that's the thing. On Reddit, I read something about LeetCode is not sufficient to clear online assessments anymore
yeah.
in India. In India,
Oh my god.
so that means Indians will have to do competitive programming, and they're not going to do on LeetCode because LeetCode is, believe it or not competitive programming. They are far more standard in terms of what they
Wow.
use. So
Can you
now they
believe
have
it?
to now you have to learn this math things, and math just nah.
It's crazy. It's like a lot of mental overhead. It's very taxing on the brain, right? Math is not, it's not easy. And it's kind of unfortunate because just 5 years ago, you could have gotten a job like blind. It literally used to be blind 75. If you do blind 75, you can work at Google, like, period. And now it's like, if you can
That's
do
not
blind
true.
75, you might get a phone screen, you know? So, yeah,
Oh,
man, who knows what it can
like
be like.
I wonder when the online assessment trend started. But like basically,
Hmm.
you you're under time pressure as well there.
Yeah.
So that's just another thing by itself. Solving problems fast. I mean, nobody told people to have a time limit on LeetCode, but this thing called online assessment and interview forced it. So here we are.
Yeah, I know it. I guess it's as old as 2017 because the Twitter one I did had an online assessment. So, and I think even like an Amazon internship when I was like a sophomore in university, yeah, it was also online assessment style. So it's been around at least since then. Now, like some of my best interviews have been, I guess a normal interview is not like an online assessment. It's timed, but it's not the same as an online assessment. But not like questions that are not leak code questions have been my best interviews. And it's not because like people think, oh, it's because like you suck at leak code or something and you can't. No, it's because every single day at my job, I do things that are not leak code. Like you're testing me on something that I don't do every single day. So obviously, like for when I apply for front end positions, if you test me on things with like React or Angular, I should be better at that than leak code, right? Because I'm doing these things every day at my work. So I think more jobs should probably trend towards that. I think that's probably better, but I don't see big companies moving away from leak code anytime soon.
And like they have to filter out people, right? Like
That's the thing, yeah. It's like the same argument for the SATs, right? People think that SATs are like, which I don't know if like that's actually I don't even know if that's something that is done only in the US or even in Canada if you all have like SATs to get
we don't
into
have that
college.
here, but we have this thing called AP classes,
Right, yeah,
which
we had
is
those
like
too.
yeah. So
Yeah, so
it's
you
like
yeah.
filtering out people, tons of people argue that you have to filter people. And you know what better way to filter people than do LeetCode? Because LeetCode, you write code,
And it's
right?
fast.
So it's good indicator, right? You write code, like
Yeah, it's like it's the perfect mixture. It's like a great exercise of weighing pros and cons of multiple interview styles, right? Like leak code is definitely in terms of efficiency and how quickly you can like give people leak code questions. You can have like many people do a leak code question in the span of like an hour. Like you can literally probably go to like a website. You can have 100 people do a leak code question, and then you just pick the top 5 to move to the next level, and that's like super easy, no time taken, instead of like handing out multiple take home assessments, and then you have to like get them back, you have to review them manually, you have to take hours of your team to review the questions. So yeah, it's hard to argue against that too, because big companies move really quickly, and like I said earlier, engineers are expendable. So if Sam is out, there's 200 people waiting, and they're all great at leak code. Everyone's the same. Everyone's just like a robot, kind of freaky. And now with
exactly.
like this GitHub Copilot stuff. I mean, what do you think?
Oh,
Yeah, like, I haven't used GitHub Copilot yet, and people are swearing by it, and I'm not against it or for it. I'm neutral because I don't have experience with it. But how do you feel about these like tools that are automating, I guess, code generation?
I think
Is that
personally they're
dangerous?
fire. They're fire
Yeah,
because people can create something like that. That blows my mind.
right, right. It's pretty cool, right?
And when I used it in my free trial, it's sad that it's no longer free, but who
That's
else is going to
right.
pay? But
Yeah,
yeah, it helped me a lot with my own project. I was able to get my logic out quickly. It just somehow works.
I know that someone was like trying to use GitHub Copilot for Elite Code, and apparently it like worked really well, or like
Oh
some
yeah, I
AI
bet
thing. Like, yeah,
you just
and I'm
give it a
like,
hard question and it'll do it for you.
it just does it. Do you feel like that's actually a good tool, like a good productivity tool for like engineers in the future? Do you think it would actually make um I mean, do you think it's a good step in the right direction? Do you feel
Uh,
like we should be, or should it be more of a manual task where we're like thinking about problems for a long time, and or should we let this tool like do a lot of it for us?
okay, so this is kind of my hot take. I
Let's
think it's
do it.
amazing for companies because
Hot
the one
take.
thing they'll save is they'll
Yeah.
save cost and time.
Yeah.
And those are like the two big things that companies are watching out for. But if everyone started using Copilot, I kind of have a feeling that people would get lazy. Because why would you think about a problem when something else can do it for you? Like
Right.
why would you even do that?
Exactly. Yeah. Why would you even do that? You just have like this other program write half of the code for you, and then like, yeah, what happens? I mean, what do you see? So I mean, are you looking into going to university, or are you just going to try and find a job? I feel like you probably know enough to just go right into the workforce and not have to go to university.
Right now I'm working to earn myself money. Maybe
Nice.
in the future I'll look into university, but right now the finance situation makes me have to go to work
Yeah.
and there's no way around that. So like I'm not going to put myself in $60,000 debt when
Yeah. Nowadays.
when
Yeah. Continue.
yeah. So and it's actually when when you're putting $60,000 debt
Hmm.
on already $1,000 of debt, I don't think that's a very good outcome.
It depends. on the degree you choose and the job you get, right? But sometimes
Exactly.
you don't know that when you're 18, saying like, yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go to college. Like it's it's weird because I did have a lot of debt, which fortunately I paid off. But nowadays, especially for like you're 18 and online learning has never been as good as it is right now. So you don't need to go to school anymore. Like my girlfriend's 22 and she went directly to she did a 3-month boot camp and then she started working. She's been into her career for like a year and a half and she's almost making the same salary I am. And she's 6 years younger than me. 6 years younger than I am. So it's like I would probably tell you to do the same and just go straight to work because you have the ability to make like by the time that you're my age, you'll be making like 10 times more than I am now because you
We
just
will
have
see. We will
all
see.
that extra time to work. Like I started working at 24 and I'm 29 now. So not to say I didn't love my university experience. Like I would do it over again for sure, you know? But I guess it just depends on what you want. Like some people like the atmosphere of school. They like being in a very academic setting. They enjoy that, so they do it. And like, I don't know, if like if you got a chance to like go to MIT or something, I'd probably be like, yeah, go to MIT. Like don't like you probably should take that experience because it's probably pretty amazing. Something like that. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff to think about. It's pretty cool, man. Let me see. I know we've been doing this over an hour already, which is it's awesome. Like I feel like this has gone very well. By the way, for people that are listening, this is I wanted to keep this to maybe at least an hour, see if we can make it that far, which we have, which I'm very very appreciative of and very happy about. I think we maybe have. Let me see. If there's any other questions that we have because I know we had some questions here that were more about your life, but I'm glad that we got more into like the LeetCode stuff. I think that's hopefully valuable to the listeners of the podcast.
Oh, I
So,
just I just
oh
had a
yeah,
thought. I'll quickly
yeah,
say
what's
out
up?
before I forget. So
Yes, tell me.
when you mentioned university, now people have said that computer science is like the ultimate degree, easy buck, and that's the thing. It's like why are you going to university? And that's the question I've been trying to answer. For me, I don't really feel like paying someone 60,000 to tell me I have to learn XYZ.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm just keeping myself safe for now.
yeah, man. I just think that I think my generation of people like millennials, um, it's weird because I'm not like I don't consider myself old, but like when I think of myself like oh when I used to be 18 like you like I that's like I was so different. I was not thinking about coding at all. And I almost kind of see myself like the older generations now, where now it seems kind of like old school to go to university, right? People now that are like in your generation, because you're like Gen Z or something, right? I think you're like Gen Z. That's like
Yeah,
I think most of these people now don't see university as like the way forward. Now it's just like everything's a la carte, and you kind of like carve your own path. I think Gen Z, I don't know why, but this is something that's very interesting to me. Like, I'll go on Wikipedia and read about all the different generations and like how their cultures are different and their beliefs. I find that stuff like pretty interesting, like history related to that. And I think in Gen Z, it was talking about how they're like more independent than any of the other generations before them. They're normally starting their careers a lot earlier. They're very like aggressive in their careers. They're not like they're having kids like much later in life because they're very career focused and they just do everything like themselves. So I think it's mostly a generational thing because I grew up thinking like, yeah, of course I'm going to go to university. Like there was no like not even an inkling of a doubt, like no doubt I was going to go. But if I was 18, I'd probably think the same way you do. Like why go to university? It's so much debt. I can start making money today as an 18-year-old. Like why wait, you know? It just depends on what you want, man. And you'll figure it out. You're a smart guy. You know.
That's the thing. I bet companies know this now, so they'll put more emphasis on degree filtering because, like,
Yeah, I know a lot of companies are like, oh, you have to have a degree, but yeah, they probably should drop that.
like I find it kind of sad to think when people are going to university strictly for computer science, always computer science. It's like the easiest way to make 100K per year or something like that.
It is for sure. Like there is no other major that will put you well. Like yes, I guess yes and no because let me think for a second. Not every company starts you off at 100K, and
I
not
know,
every
but like,
person that graduates from a CS degree is going to be able to get one of these jobs, especially now. With how we see the world is moving, like with LeetCode and the competitive nature of everything. But yeah, a lot of people do join. I guess in that way, CS is almost becoming a little bit like how do I say this?
I'll
It,
call it
it
the meta in gamer terms. It's the meta.
I was gonna say it's almost becoming like too cool. Not like I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but people go to it because they just see the money and like
Hmm.
they don't really understand anything about it. And like they're smart enough to like take the classes and then they get to it and then they hate the job or they don't think because nowadays you also see like computer science has almost become when I say cool, I mean you'll see people on like TikTok and Instagram that they're like, "Oh, I'm a software engineer, but I'm super cool." I'm not saying that software engineers can't be cool. Like that's not the point I'm trying to get across. What I mean is that they're portraying the job to be something that it's not. Like it's more focused on um, the cool factor. When like I don't think the best software engineers think about that. Like I enjoy coding, so I do it because I like it, and everything else is a side effect. But some people are like, oh, I want to do it because it's like it's super cool, and like I just want to make $100,000 a year. And then they get to that job and they realize that the amount of money they get is not going to make them any happier. You know,
Yeah, just like, graduate with a CS degree, grind LeetCode for maybe a year or two, applying to like
the life.
100 jobs every month, and easy money.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not easy at all. It's crazy. Yeah, there's so many requirements not to get a job at like a top tech company. I was trying to do it for a little bit, and then I was just like this. I don't think this is like worth it. Like I'm happy where I am, and yeah, I'm like better off for it, I think. But I didn't need to make the transition. But I'm very curious to see where you end up, man. You're super young, and you have all this knowledge that a lot of people I don't think at your age have. But I don't know. Then I'm not that age anymore, so maybe there's like a ton of 18-year-olds that are like gods at LeetCode, you know. But we'll see, man. You gotta let me know when you do get a job.
Yeah, I'm not a prodigy, guys. Like I worked my butt off.
That's the important thing, right? It takes time. And even for people like Sam, you got to work your butt off to be able to get those hard questions done. Yeah, man, you
Mm.
eat hard questions for breakfast, right? Yeah, that's what you do. You wake up and like I'm gonna eat a hard question and then I'll have some breakfast afterwards. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. Yeah. That's awesome, man. So why don't we wrap it up and you tell us a little bit about how can people connect with you if people want to find you, what's the best way to find you? I guess probably the Discord.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really active on the Discord, and I talk a lot. People talk a lot there. Going to make it a great environment for everyone as a
Nice.
moderator, and yeah, just LeetCode Discord.
LeetCode Discord. Yeah, we've been doing it since December. Sam has been a moderator now for, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 months, maybe. I don't know exactly the time frame. I forget. But yeah, if you want to talk to Sam, join the Discord. I'll put the link to the Discord in the description. I know that for people that have been watching these videos regularly, you always see the Discord link down there. Yeah, Sam is extremely active. And it'd be also cool to have John on here as well. Probably just see if we can get John on one of these podcasts as well. If you guys are interested in doing a podcast episode, and if either you or if you know someone that has had a significant impact, like their life has been impacted because of LeetCode or software, let me know or join the Discord and let us know, and we'll make sure to set up something like this for them. So, Sam, do you have any parting words you'd like to give to the audience? Any last golden tidbits of knowledge for the masses?
So
Learn your data structures.
I will quote something from a subreddit I will not share. Grind LeetCode. But yeah, that subreddit, just lots of LeetCode memes.
Nice.
That's like
So,
something I look at to just take my mind off and laugh at. But
well,
yeah, guys, so if you want to get better at LeetCode, well, there are a few strategies. Like if you're cramming for interview, look at the popular lists. What they do is they try to maximize the amount of things you learn and not so many questions. And that'll probably help you if you don't understand it, understand their solution. I know that's what a lot of people use for their strategy when they're prepping. Like if you're like me, trying to actually become better at problem solving, not having to look at solutions and all that, then take your time, understand the question, exhaust all your ideas, look at hints if necessary, see if it's a classic problem that you'll have to study, and give it time.
you could not have said that any better, Sam. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I know this was like a very fun experiment for us to go through this podcast style thing. I really hope that this first episode, will inspire more people to hopefully hop on and do these podcasts. And yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll end it here. Thank you so much for your time, Sam. It was awesome chatting with you, and we'll keep in touch through Discord and pretty much anywhere else. We're always talking.
And join the Discord, guys. It's a good place.
Join the Discord, guys. All right, later, man. Take it
All right,
easy.
see ya.